So first of all, what we're going to do, and I'm going to use my mouse over here, is we're going to have a look at a scrub hare anatomy. And what I want to point out here is those enormous ears sticking out over the top of its head, as well as some enormous eyes, and the very thick fur and the rather rodent-like approach to chewing. We've included a section here with our thermal camera because it's added such a massive element to our understanding of how it is that these creatures work. It really is utterly fascinating, and what you'll notice is the glow of the scrub hare's ears. And what we're doing now, and I think the clip is now done, should be done, is we are going to put our gloves on, and we are going to have a look at a dead scrub hare. I should just quickly tell you that the way in which the scrub hare died is not a mystery. It's very unfortunate, though. It was as a result of human beings. It's roadkill. It was killed by presumably quite a fast-moving vehicle on one of the main roads, not by one of us. And the poor thing is now very deceased. It's also a little bit cold because it's been living in the freezer for the last 3 days. Now this is our scrub hare over here. Darby, which side would you like me to stand? I think that side. Cool. And I just don't want to get my shadow too much on her head. Now we're pretty certain that it's a female. And the reason that we're pretty certain that it's a female is because we think that we can see her nipples here. Julie says that she loves anatomy and that she still has all of her books from college. That's awesome, Julie. So this is obviously, for some people, it's a little bit disturbing. I've been ably assisted here by Xoli, who has very kindly offered to give up his afternoon off in order to be an assistant to a mad scientist. He's already cut away most of the fur on the belly. But what we want to talk about first, before we get into the belly, is the massive ears. Now you saw how those ears, there are lots of ticks in here for a start, lots of the small species of ticks. There we go, there they are there. A little bit misplaced now. But what we want to talk about is the reason that scrub hares have such large ears. Now the first reason is pretty obvious. I mean, it's for listening. Oh, there's a lot more ticks in here. Oh, she's so stiff. There we go. A lot more ticks in there. Now, the reason is, of course, they can hear, much like a kudu's ears, so they help to funnel the sound into the ear canal. But there's another reason that is particularly relevant in the sort of wilds of South Africa, and that is because they are fantastic thermoregulators. So you saw how hot those ears were. The skin is really, really thin, really thin through here. And that allows the blood to go very close to the surface and obviously then cool down, rather than being covered by this thick layer of fur, which is particularly relevant for an animal like this that lives out here. Jimmy says he didn't realize how large scrub hares are. They're actually really large. Listen, I'm sorry if this does disturb you. It will not be the whole of this afternoon show will not be spent with this poor deceased scrub hare. She's donated her body to science. Yes, they're actually quite long. I mean, that is probably close on 75 centimeters from the tips of her toes. But what I also want to show you, just quickly while we're talking about it, a lot of people think that scrub hares are rodents. They're not. They belong to the order Lagomorph. I'm just going to flip her over here, Darv, and I'm going to show you her mouth. Shame, I accidentally dropped her face first in the sand earlier, so that's why she's got sand. So people looked at their teeth and sort of assumed that this was a very rodent-like setup with these two incisors on the top and the bottom. But as it happens, they actually have, and I'll see if I can open her mouth. Rigor mortis is obviously set in. It's very difficult. But she's actually got 4 incisors. There's a second set at the back there. I've also recently discovered that in hares, one of the plates of their skulls does not fuse. Or hasn't fused. So it's almost like a joint in their skull. Now, I can't figure out where it is through feeling, and I can't find out. I've Googled it, and I can't find out where it is. But apparently it's to act as a shock absorber. So somewhere in here is a plate of the skull that hasn't actually fused, which I find fascinating and I didn't know. What we are going to do, and I'm probably not going to do it right now, I'm going to give you a little bit of time to prepare, is I'm going to cut open her belly. And what we're looking for in particular is we always talk about how certain types of animals are hindgut fermenters. Hares are as well, even though they practice coprophagy. They eat their own dung pellets. I want to show you what the cecum looks like of a hindgut fermenter, if I can find the cecum. I've never dissected a scrub hare. It's been a long time since I've dissected anything, actually. And I have to just say thank you to Trishala for providing me with her dissection kit, because that's going to help immensely. So we're going to actually cut her open, and we're going to look for the cecum in particular, but the arrangement of body organs as well. And the reason we're going to do that is every mammal out here follows a formula. There's a femur, there's a tibia, there's a fibula, there's phalanges and carpals, metacarpals, tarsals, and all of those sorts of things. So the formula, the basic formula, whether we're talking about a scrub rabbit or scrub hare, or whether we're talking about hyenas, is essentially the same. All right. Okay, this is going to be the goriest part of this whole process. So, you know, for those of you that are sensitive of stomach, please don't watch. Just turn away for a little bit. Just listen if you want to. If you don't, cup of tea might be nice, because we are going to, I've cut her belly open, or his actually, I think it's a he. So I want to show you what the intestines of a scrub hare look like, because every single herbivore is basically geared towards breaking down plant material and getting the most out of it that they can. All right, you ready? Prepare yourselves. Okay, cool. So before I started cutting through the connective tissue, what I wanted to show you was the amount of blood vessels. It's obviously still stomach contents of his last meal. The amount of blood vessels that move through or cover the intestines and fill up the peritoneal cavity, which obviously are very important for a couple of things. One is to keep the cells supplied with blood, but the other, of course, is for absorption as well. We all pretty much know the process. We go through the small intestine to the large intestine, but things get a little bit different in a hindgut fermenter. This here is a massively modified part of the intestine that is the cecum. And the cecum is essentially a fermenting chamber filled with bacteria, good bacteria, not bad bacteria, that help to break down the plant material and actually allow the body to get as much as possible, because the digestive system is not capable of breaking down cellulose. So that is where all of the important stuff happens. Not all of the digestive products make it through the cecum. Some actually bypass it. And then as you get towards the end, you get little calcix. Yes, I tell you exactly what its last meal was. It was grass, because that's what they eat. Calcix wants to know if I can tell from the digestive tract. I can't. Where are the little pellets gone? Oh, here. There we go. The end part of the digestive process, as you know. I'm going to cut open the intestine. Sorry, Dav, for the smell. Scalpel's a little blunt. Here we go. And that is the little dropping that we find at the end product of the digestion. Not fully formed yet, but there you go. It was grass, plant material. And as you know, they practice coprophagy. Get off my finger, please. And so as a result, they're able to digest their food properly. There you go. I know this is gruesome, but it's really fascinating. Look at the massive muscle structures along the inside of the abdominals, lining the spine, and huge blood vessels that transport blood to the lower limbs and to the pelvis, and of course then return the blood back to the heart and then to the lungs, which is utterly fascinating. I think this is a spleen, but I'm not 100% sure. I'm missing a liver somewhere, so this might be liver. No, there's liver there. That's its liver. No, it's a kidney. That's a kidney. Sorry, talking nonsense. Look, there's one kidney, there's the other kidney. Sundancer Imagery says that they love learning about this stuff. I do too. I find it totally fascinating. And it doesn't in any way stress me out or disgust me. I'm lucky that way. It doesn't bother me. It's lungs. I haven't broken into the chest cavity yet. It's a bit of a tricky one to do, but there's lobes of lungs in here. Well, this whole thing, it's fascinating to me to think that this is a meat sack. It's a sack of meat that exists, as all of us do, purely to keep the neurons and the brain alive. Your whole body is just your brain and your eyes, your neurals, what am I trying to say? Your nerve structure, your nerve system. Everything else exists to keep your brain alive. All of this exists to keep your brain alive, and I find that absolutely fascinating. Our Lara Moore wants to know if the diaphragm was visible. To be honest, when I pulled out, I was actually thinking about that. When I pulled out the intestines, I was looking for it, but I didn't actually see it all that clearly. Perhaps I'm talking nonsense. Perhaps that's because this is the liver and I haven't actually got into the lungs. There's the diaphragm. Lara Moore. That's the diaphragm here. This bit here. This entire layer is the diaphragm, and I actually haven't got in to the lungs. I thought I'd cut something by mistake, but I haven't. This is the liver. There's the stomach here. And this is the diaphragm. And its lungs and its heart are here. So separated from the rest of the abdominal cavity. I thought I'd somehow made this tragic error of cutting through the diagram. I couldn't quite work out how I'd done that, but I haven't. Isn't this fascinating? I'm going to try and get into the heart and the lungs, and then we're done, I think, with this scrub here. Oh, by the way, why I think it's a male, those little things I said were nipples, I found testes. These are testes. Yes, Zach, absolutely. I would not be surprised at all if we have a visit from a hyena later today, or later this evening as it gets dark. Yes, they'll smell. They will definitely smell what we're doing. Oh, so tough. It's astounding how much force you need to cut through meat. There we go, into the chest. There we go. Here's the heart and the lungs. Isn't that fascinating? So clean. Obviously there's no blood because there's no circulation here happening. Isn't this absolutely fascinating? So what we're going to do, speaking of predators, is once we're finished with her, I just need to cut through this bit here, Darth. What we need to do is we are going to put her out to feed the predators after we're done here. So she will become a meal for another creature. Let's see if I can get the lung out. There we go. The lobes of the lung. Wow. Very cool. I'm absolutely loving this. It's so fascinating. Big thank you to Xoli. There are very few people who shine as brightly as he does in this ever dull world. So thank you to him for playing assistant. Right, I'm going to try and finish this up now. So while I do that, we'll send you. This is going to be just a last little segment because I'm finding this so fascinating, and I drew so many diagrams to show you this afternoon, and it took me all weekend. So at some point I'm going to have to stop with the scrub here, but I'm just having so much fun. So all I wanted to show you was the organs, which I've separated. I've disorganized it. It's now a disorganized scrub hair, apart from the intestines, which I've left largely as is because they smell. This here is its lungs. So I've cut away all of the blood vessels, but what you'll immediately notice, and which we know, remember the formula's the same, 2 lobes and 3 lobes. And I always find asymmetry fascinating in nature because, of course, symmetry, at least in a sort of for casual observation, symmetry is basically the norm. And in this case, as with all mammal lungs, I think it's all mammal lungs, 3 lobes here on one side and 2 lobes here. Eric, you want to know how the smell is? I'm just holding the chest cavity closed because I cut off the heart, so she's a bit bloody inside, or he is a bit bloody inside. Eric wants to know how the smell is. Oh, it's fine. It really is. I mean, it's far worse sitting next to a buffalo kill that has been there for days and days and days and is full of maggots. It really is absolutely fine. This is the most nutritious part of the scrub hare. It's the liver and the lobes. Liver very, very rich. It actually, those of you who cook liver or eat liver, you'll see it looks pretty much exactly the same. And when the predators eat, that is what they're aiming for. Now just think how a leopard would devour an entire scrub hare like this, including the intestines. They don't sort of shrink away. And that's basically what this scrub hare smells like, is a little bit meaty and like stomach contents. This is its little heart. Tiny, tiny, tiny little heart. Obviously doing all of the hard work of pumping blood throughout the entire body. And you can see the large opening there to feed the blood back into the ventricles and down into the what is it called? Atrium. No, first atrium, then ventricles. Atrium on top, ventricles at the bottom. It's been a really long time since I've done this. So that's its tiny heart, unbelievably muscular. Oh, whoops. It's like it jumped away from me. Very, very muscular. It is so springy and strong. And then the kidneys, which are separated as well for you. Sorry about the lost heart. It's a little bit macabre. There you go, that's a kidney. Looks just like a kidney bean. I didn't break the scrub hare's heart. I promise. It wasn't me. I did throw it across the table, though, which is just as bad. So 2 perfectly matched little kidneys, one higher, one lower. And I can only assume this is the pancreas or the spleen. I can't quite work out what that is. Sorry, guys, it's got a little bit bloody, but that's all part and parcel of this process. I think we managed to keep things relatively clean up until now. Joy of black gloves. Don't even ask. But the joy of black gloves. You can't actually see it too badly. Cool! So that's the disorganized scrub hare. Look at that. And connective tissue. That's the disorganized scrub hare. I'm actually going to pop her organs back into her abdominal cavity. And I'm going to clean her up, and then I'm going to get down to the slightly less gory stuff so that those of you who don't like this can return to watching. While I do that, and while we just sort this out very quickly, off you pop across to Rusty.